When we had the trailer hitch receiver installed on our vehicle, it was installed for a utility trailer 4-wire connector, but with the purchase of a new RV trailer, I needed to upgrade it to a 7-way plug. The 7-way plug has a handy bracket for mounting, but my car just has a plastic bumper with nothing substantial behind it to screw into. This is a problem in need of a solution. I considered whether I could use the back opening of the hitch receiver to attach the plug there somehow, but there was no obvious practical solution there. I eventually saw that someone else had a bar attached to the receiver, and I figured I could replicate something similar. I had some leftover aluminum angle bar from my snowblower control panel repair, which should be strong enough, and it looks like it'll fit into the available space. To get started with the fabrication, I measured the outside of the receiver to know how wide apart to make the bolt holes. It looks like 1 5/8 of an inch is the space that I'll need from the edge of each of the holes. Note that this is not the measure from the center of the holes. I started by filing down the ends of the aluminum angle bar so that it doesn't have any sharp edges or corners. Once the angle stock was prepped, I went ahead and marked the center of the first hole. To make it easier to start the drill bit in exactly the right spot, I punched the center using an old nail. I bet real metalworking shops have a proper tool for doing that. Anyway, once the center was punched, I took it to the drill press and drilled the first hole. I'm drilling 1/4-inch holes, so in order to determine the correct location of the second hole, I needed to take the measure that I got from the receiver, which was 1 5/8, and then add half the thickness of the drill bit. Since I'm using a 1/4-inch bit, half of that is 1/8 of an inch, which when added to 1 5/8 gives me 1 6/8, which is 1 3/4 when you reduce it down. Yes, I am a math teacher. So I mark the center of the next hole, 1 3/4 inches from the edge of the first hole, and repeat the process of punching and drilling the hole. With that done, I needed to cut the bar to length. The first piece is going to be the bottom part of the clamp, which needs to be about 3 inches in length. I cut the bar and filed the end to round the edges and corners again. Once the first piece was done, I needed to make sure that it fit, so I took it out to do a test fit on the receiver, and it looks like it fits with just a little room to spare. I decided it was better for the holes to be just a little wider apart than 1 5/8 in case my measurements weren't perfect. It looks like the fit is good. Back in the shop, it was time to mark the holes for the bracket and drill them. Once they were drilled, it was time to mark and drill the holes for the part that clamps around the receiver. I used the bottom bracket that I just made as a template for those holes. With all the holes drilled, I could now go ahead and mount the bracket onto the bar using a couple of short 1/4-inch bolts. I'm never sure when to use split washers to help lock a nut in place and when to use a nut with a nylon bushing, so if anyone has more knowledge than me, please feel free to add some insightful comments into the comments below. Anyway, for the bracket, I'm using split washers with the nuts, so I added those to the bolts and tightened everything up. I also had to screw the plug to the bracket, which I didn't video. Once the bracket and plug were attached to the bar, I took everything back out to the car. For the nuts that are being used to attach the aluminum angle bar to the receiver, I'm using nuts that have a nylon liner, which helps to lock the nut in place, so that it won't vibrate loose on the highway. Now, all that was left to do was tighten all 4 of the nuts so the bar is clamped tightly to the receiver, and then connect the wires in behind. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the result. At this length, the bar is strong enough to plug in and unplug from easily without excessive flexing. If I was doing this again, I might consider making that mounting arm a bit shorter. I made it this length so that it was well out of the way of the hitch and the chains, but I probably made it longer than it needed to be. Finally, the aluminum would probably look better if it was painted black so that it blended in a little better with the receiver, bracket, and plug, so a quick spray paint coating would be a good finish. That's all that's required to make a mounting bracket for a 7-way plug that attaches to your receiver. Your dimensions may be different from mine, so measure before you cut. If you're interested in an eclectic assortment of DIY repairs, woodworking, and electronics projects, please like and subscribe to my channel below.